So for the mornings, I'd like to continue our focus on the cultivation of Shamatha. And a very loose but nice translation of Shamatha would be peace of mind. Peace of mind. And when one is in such pleasant environment, as for those of us who have the tremendous good fortune to be here in this lovely center, in this surrounding environment, so peaceful, so peaceful. And the people taking care of us are so gracious. And I can say that I had a conversation with the director of the Institute just a couple of days ago. So delighted with our group. He said, "Oh, your group are amazing. They're so kind, they're so courteous, they're so pleasant to work with." That gives me a lot of joy. You know, they really enjoy having us here. And I think for a very simple reason, you are all practicing Dharma. And you engage with courtesy and respect. And people like that. Son of a gun, you know. People are weird that way. But they really do. So this gives me great satisfaction as well. So here we are, we've created this oasis in a world that is often not so kind and not so peaceful. But we are in a very kind and peaceful environment, with kind and peaceful people, right? But what about when we have to leave? And insofar as we've really cultivated peace of mind, then this is what we bring to every encounter. That's what we're bringing. That's the eudaimonia. That's what we're bringing to the situation, rather than what we're getting from the situation. So we can go to certain environments that make us feel very peaceful. Oh, that place is so peaceful. I feel so good when I'm there. Or I so like hanging out with this person because he or she is so peaceful. I really enjoy it. It makes my mind very peaceful. That's hedonic. Nothing wrong with it, but it's hedonic. Whereas what we're seeking here is not simply to enjoy Tuscany for 8 weeks and a Dharma vacation. Of course, none of us are. But to be cultivating qualities here that will be sustainable. You know, we have this big thing of sustainable energy, sustainable economy, sustainable happiness, sustainable well-being, sustainable peace of mind. Which is easy, relatively easy in an environment like this cloistered environment. If we are able to create a contemplative observatory, and I think the most likely option at this point is right up the hill, if we get the permit, then we'll seek to do that, to create a very conducive environment, the incubator, to provide as optimal circumstances as we can to help people achieve very durable peace of mind, actually achieve Shamatha, which then you can carry to Manhattan, you can carry anywhere you like. You know, in Manhattan, not a bad place, but a very high energy place. Nothing wrong with that, but it's maybe hard to maintain peace of mind in a place like Manhattan, just because it's so energetic, to put it mildly. And so there are two approaches here. Peace of mind. Again, as Roger Jackson translates Shamatha as serenity. It's a good translation. Peace, calm abiding, serenity, tranquility, quiescence. But there are two approaches there. But let's keep this contextualized in this world, and not just what's nice when we're in retreat in a very pleasant environment with pleasant people. If we cultivate and we sustain, we maintain a sense of peace of mind, then even when we meet unruly people, or let's even put it that way, it's not like there are ruly people and unruly people. There are people who are having upheavals of their mental afflictions, and the same people on other occasions don't. And I think kind of we're all that way until we're arhats. We have our good days and our bad days. You know, very few people have just all bad days, and only the exceptional have all good days. But if we bring to our relationships, to life, families, work, and so forth, if we bring to the situations peace of mind, then we may be able to sustain that. This is the ideal, clearly. To be able to sustain that equilibrium, that balance, that peace of mind. Still relaxed, still clear, but also benevolent. That's why we had that whole string of meditations, starting with loving kindness, cultivating bodhicitta. It's not just still and clear. It's also one where the heart is open, it's warm, it's kind-hearted. But it's not easy, of course. But we try to, as the same theme that I emphasized yesterday, we start where it's easy. In an environment like this. We don't start in a really rough neighborhood where we may get mugged, shot, beat up, and so forth, where also it's not a rock quarry over there, you're in the rock quarry, where it's just, noise, and that's not where we start. The great bodhisattva may move there to be of benefit, but that's not where we start. So cultivating sustainable peace of mind, which is sustainable even when we meet or engage with other people who are experiencing upheavals of their own mental afflictions. If we don't have peace of mind, then when we encounter people who are experiencing their own upheavals, guess what? It'll almost certainly catalyze our own. That's what happens. As we meet other people who are really angry, belligerent, condescending, contemptuous, and so forth, and it arouses defensiveness, anger, and so forth and so on. And then samsara spins on and on and on. Right? So sustainable peace of mind. So that even when other people are really very offensive, very difficult, we don't respond in the same way. We don't get caught up in the drama. We don't have the cognitive fusion with their own mental afflictions. That's kind of a big deal, yeah? That's what we're here for. We're not here just to cultivate cloistered virtue, which will be good only when we're in optimal circumstances. We step out and it all falls apart. There'd be no point. I think we all have better things to do than that. So cultivating something sustainable. Well, there's peace of mind, but then we all know, all of us here, I think probably everybody listening by podcast, that even when sitting in the quietude of our room and it's serene and there's no unpleasant stimuli coming in, we can still be mugged, right? Still be tormented, still be upset. And it's our own minds doing it to us. There is no peace of mind. The mind is not peaceful. The mind is going through an upheaval for whatever reason, but it happens. So then there is no peace of mind. What can you do then? Peace of awareness. And this is really the Dzogchen approach. The developmental approach is cultivate, transform, purify, develop, purify, transform, develop, effortfully transform. Keep on working with that mind until it finally shapes up and it's good, like training a dog, right? Until it's finally obedient. And that takes a lot of work. It's certainly worth doing. Shantideva tells us many, many ways to cultivate the mind in very meaningful ways. And on the other hand, and that's an effortful path, and it's a noble path, and it's proven effective in many, many cases. And on the other hand, we have this way of just resting in awareness and not getting caught up in the drama, let alone of other people's mental afflictions, which is easy to do. Even by way of the internet, we see stuff going on in politics and so forth and so on. It's very easy to get caught up in other people's mental afflictions. People you've never even met, Very easy. Happens all the time. But let alone getting caught up in other people's mental afflictions who appear on the internet, the news and so forth, or people we meet in real life and their mental afflictions, and let alone that, but not even being caught up in the drama of our own mental afflictions. That's this approach. That's this discovery approach, where our primary focus is not even on transforming and purifying the mind. It's on resting in awareness without cognitive fusion with the mental afflictions, resting there in the natural stillness, the natural purity, and the natural clarity of our own awareness, observing the drama, the upheavals, the mental afflictions arising and passing, and observe them arise of their own accord with no ownership, and observe them dissolve away with no ownership, and watch the mind heal itself. Sigh of relief. The mind actually can, if we're not entering into the cognitive fusion. Now we know that's hard. And this is why we're going to spend more time, still some more days, in this practice of full body awareness, mindfulness of breathing. We know exactly where it's going. The next step is going to be settling the mind in its natural state. It will be very familiar when I start teaching it again. We'll teach it with a new set of words from Panchen Lozang, but nothing will surprise you. For those of you involving podcasts and so forth, there'll be no surprises. But we're spending a lot of time here, now more than 2 weeks, because this is riding the bicycle of settling the mind in its natural state with the training wheels of having something to hold on to. That's what it is. Because we're cultivating that stillness of awareness right now already, which is exactly the same stillness of awareness that we will be sustaining when we're settling the mind in its natural state. But when you're settling the mind in its natural state, you have nothing to hold on to at all. Nothing. For your stability, You don't have a buoy, you don't have a rock, you don't have something in the howling winds of your mind. When you're resting your awareness, settling your mind in its natural state, what are you holding on to? What you're attending to is the howling wind. So what are you holding on to? To, keep secure, well, if you're doing the practice correctly, you're not holding on to anything. So then how can you avoid being swept away by the howling wind of your own mental afflictions? Well, resting without grasping, without distraction. That's how. Not easy. And so we're going to go back in the session, which will begin momentarily, to the more elementary analog of settling the mind in its natural state, settling the body in its natural state in terms of the breathing, and having something to hold on to, something to anchor the awareness. Your trainer wheels, if you're out in the ocean, a life buoy, something you can hold on to in the waves of the mind, the noise, the tumultuousness of our own minds, something to hold on to that's rhythmic, that's reliable. You can count on it for as long as you're alive. And that is in-breath, out-breath. Something to hold on to that doesn't annoy, doesn't irritate, doesn't arouse craving, grasping, greed, and so forth. It's pretty neutral. Something to hold on to. And then a little bit to do, since we're so addicted to doing. Okay, do something. Arouse and relax, arouse and relax. Do that. But mostly rest in the stillness of your awareness. And secondarily do this. So that's for the session. So I think now that I've spoken about it, I don't need to talk us through it again. But then we have in-between sessions, and here I'd like to be very, very brief. But I came across these quotes by an outstanding physicist. He's very distinguished. He's won at least one big award. He's an astrophysicist at Stanford University, man of great distinction. He's a Russian physicist, but he's been doing research, teaching at Stanford for many years now. His name is André Linde. And I can say very mainstream. He's highly respected, worked on early inflationary period of the cosmos. A very distinguished physicist, very mainstream. But I have a couple of quotes here that really give hope. Because when I cite, people, a physicist, I mentioned a physicist, a neuroscientist, two philosophers, that you just kind of slap your head and say, how can they say that? There are no appearances, there's no consciousness, there's no mind. There's no introspection. How do they become so divorced, so alienated from reality? How's it possible? Well, we don't need to answer the question. They did, and we know why, because their minds are so mesmerized by materialism. They can't see straight. But not everybody. And so here, see whether this rings a bell. These were an essay he wrote, where it's physicists writing. It's in a collection of essays by very, very fine physicists, and they're grappling with the deepest issues. What's the nature of reality? They're doing that. What's the nature of reality? Here's some comments he makes. A healthy scientific conservatism usually forces us to disregard all metaphysical subjects that seem unrelated to our research. Science does this all the time. Never mind the big issues. Don't go woo on us. Don't go metaphysical. Don't go philosophical. Don't go mystical, for God's sake. Get back to the research. Get back to writing your paper. Publish. So it's a healthy scientific conservatism. Avoid that kind of stuff. Let somebody else deal with it. However, in order to make sure that this conservatism is really healthy, from time to time, one should take a risk to abandon some of the standard assumptions. This sounds dangerous. This may allow us either to reaffirm our previous position, if it stands up to very careful scrutiny, good, or to find some possible limitations of our earlier point of view. Is that refreshing? There's more. Now let us return to consciousness. Oh my God. Are you kidding? Okay, what do you have to say? Now let us turn to consciousness. The standard assumption is that consciousness, just like space-time before the invention of general relativity, consciousness plays a secondary, subservient role, being just a function of matter and a tool for the description of the truly existing material world. This man, I don't think he has any background whatsoever in Buddhism or Madhyamika. These are his words. But let us remember that our knowledge of the world begins not with matter, but with perceptions. There's more. This model of material world, obeying laws of physics, is so successful that soon we forget about our starting point and say that matter is the only reality and perceptions are nothing but a useful tool for the description of matter. This assumption is almost as natural and maybe as false as our previous assumption that space is only a mathematical tool for the description of matter. We are substituting reality of our feelings by the reality of our feelings, our immediate experience. Not just I like, but we're substituting the reality of our immediate experience, of our feelings, by the successfully working theory of an independent existing material world. We're completely overwriting our experience by a concept of an independent world that is completely material and truly existent and exists independently of experience. And the theory is so successful that we almost never think about its possible limitations. You can tell I'm enjoying it. I really don't like criticizing. It's not enjoyable. This is enjoyable. But you have to clean out the dirt out of the house before you can lay out the flowers. These are flowers. Yesterday was not flowers. Final one. Is it possible, writes the same physicist, is it possible that consciousness, like space-time, has its own intrinsic degrees of freedom, and that neglecting these will lead to a description of the universe that is fundamentally incomplete? What if our perceptions are as real, or maybe in a certain sense are even more real than material objects? What if my red, my blue, my pain are really existing objects, not merely reflections of the really existing material world? Is it possible to produce a space of elements of consciousness and investigate a possibility that consciousness may even exist by itself, even in the absence of matter, just like gravitational waves, excitations of space, may exist in the absence of protons and electrons? There's still more. Could it be that consciousness is an equally important part of the consistent picture of our world, despite the fact that so far one could safely ignore it in the description of the well-studied physical processes? Will it not turn out, with the further development of science, that the study of the universe and the study of consciousness are inseparably linked, and that ultimate progress in the one will be impossible without progress in the other? And I've given you the full citation. Otherwise you think I made that up. Yeah. April Fools, you got us. Here's the title of it: Inflation, Quantum Cosmology, and the Anthropic Principle. That's his essay in a volume, which is an amazing volume. Science and Ultimate Reality, Quantum Theory, Cosmology, and Complexity, honoring John Wheeler's 90th birthday. So that is a note of hope for the day, right? And there are people like that out there, and they're open. But you know what they're missing? They don't have a method. These are brilliant ideas, but he doesn't have a method. People can't have everything. They don't have a method. Bring these two together. Vive la révolution. You know? It's really wrong. So now let's practice. Peace of mind. So that in between sessions we can attend to perceptions, to the reality of our own experience. So then there's the rest of the day. Our formal sessions, and then the rest of the day, and the rest of the day is again more of the day than our formal sittings, which then means it's all the more important to fill that with Dharma so that we don't just have up and down, up and down. And so let's come back to the starting place that André Linde, the physicist, brings our attention to. And that is, the starting place is our awareness and our perceptions, our awareness and appearances. That's perceptions. That's our starting place. Whoever you are, you're a philosopher, a poet, gardener, artist, whoever you are, that's where you are. Awareness and appearances. Awareness is obviously not physical. That's it. Appearances, the colors we see, my red, my blue, that's what he said, right? And the sounds that I hear and the smells that I sense and so on. All of these appearances to the mind and to the senses. None of them are physical. Not one. They have no physical attributes. They can't be measured physically. Shouldn't that be the end of the conversation? That everything we're immediately experiencing is not physical. What we're immediately experiencing is our perceptions, which is to say, awareness and appearances. That's immediate. It's not to say that's the only thing that exists, but that's the only thing of which you are immediately aware. Right? And so, between sessions, let's practice this very simple Vipashyana. This isn't cluttered and not complicated. And that is just, once you're aware of awareness, and once you're aware of appearance, you're seeing appearances as appearances. It's Buddha to Bahia. In the scene, you see, that's what I'm seeing. In the herd, there's the herd, and the felt. And what is cognized mentally, you're recognizing, I'm cognizing mentally. Once you've scraped it back to what is immediately present, scraped away all the barnacles of all the stuff we're superimposing on it, starting there, this is where we start. This is what we know. This is much deeper than I think, therefore I am. Descartes tried the same thing. Let's get back to something that is indubitable. He didn't go far enough, clearly. Because the sense of I can evaporate, and thinking evaporates. But awareness and appearances are there even when the sense of I is gone, and when thinking is gone. This is more primitive. Descartes didn't go far enough. The Buddha went far enough. So going back there is your baseline in between sessions. During sessions, I would suggest go back to Shamatha. Keep on cultivating this. You're going to need that. It's refining your tool, sharpening your knife. But in between sessions, then see, be aware of the awareness and aware of the appearances arising. And then observe carefully. This is where the Vipassana comes in with. It's just a little simple question. What am I superimposing upon these non-physical flows of appearances, non-physical flow of awareness? What am I superimposing? And André Linde tells us the whole material world, everything material, is something that we're designating on the basis of something that's not physical. The material world is conceptual. It's conceptually designated and has no existence independent of conceptual designation. We'll return to that later. But here it is. Just keep on resting in the immediacy of the experience, the awareness of appearances, and as Dujum Lingpa so majestically suggests, as he launches us on this very, very straight and actually very short path of Dzogchen. The very first step after preparing the ground, doing your preliminaries, is taking appearances and awareness as the path. That's it. That's what he called it. Nang rik lamrikewa. That's your launching point. A point of certainty, a launching point, a point of departure of certainty. What is there to doubt here? Do you really think you might not be aware? And do you really think appearances aren't occurring? I mean, there are people say that, but they're fooling themselves. It's a form of, I don't know. They drank the Kool-Aid. The Kool-Aid had datura in it. So we don't need to worry about that. They'll come out of their coma one of these days. But in the meantime, we're not in a coma. And there's something so obviously not to be doubted or questioned. Awareness and appearances. So he's, from the very beginning, in a very practical, tangible, accessible way, he's saying, what is your path? The reality you have access to. There are many levels of reality we don't have access to. You may not have realized Rigpa yet. You may not have realized emptiness. You may not have realized, whether there's life on other planets. There are many things that are true that we don't know yet. But you start from that which is incontrovertibly true and as real as anything we know. Awareness and appearances. And then see what you add on. Okay? Good. So let's enjoy the serene environment to practice. Enjoy it.